is Ursi. Um, a lot of our members couldn't be here today due to personal issues. So I'm a freshman in college, and last year when I was a senior in high school, we did a project called Build Your Own Community. And there were many problems that were going on in our community. My group specifically decided to focus on housing and community development in Oakland, California. Well, part of that was basically like gentrification. So there's a huge problem with gentrification in our community. Gentrification is essentially when people from wealthy communities come to under-affluent communities and basically rip them out of their homes, and they have to be displaced and go somewhere else. So an example of that is in San Francisco, there are a lot of houses that cost like a lot of money. And the people, they move from San Francisco and come to Oakland, and then the people who live in Oakland are like left like nowhere to be found, basically, because they're no longer in their homes. So I'm going to move on to our philosophical foundations. Discuss the 4 agreements from the Mesoamerican Toltec group, the Ma'at Nile Valley Ancient Kemet group, the Tao Te Ching from East Asia, the Zapatistas from Mexico, and the Black Panther Party from North America, which later formed together and made the Zapatera Negra. So our philosophical framework included these people. We dive deeper in so that we can figure out how to have sustainable, quality, and affordable housing in our communities. So the Tao Te Ching, which is a collection of 81 different lessons on how to live a righteous and just life, helped us to understand the philosophy of interdependence. To be interdependent means to depend on one another. If we depend on one another, we can have a community and grow together and basically keep our homes. Next is the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. The 4 agreements include: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best, which have been misused. For example, be impeccable with your word. The banks in our communities are not being impeccable with their word. They're handing out subprime loans to people. A subprime loan is essentially a loan that has high interest rates. They trick us into thinking that it's good, but in the long run, it only costs more, and basically we don't have enough money to pay for it, which goes into hand with number 3. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume that the bank have your best interest at heart. They're handing out the subprime loans to our people, and basically what they do is hire people who look just like us, people who are black and brown and Pacific Islander, and then they have them give us the loans. They have us basically do their dirty work, which led us into our 7 pillars. We noticed that everything, or all of our philosophies, had something in particular that like helped us to understand how we can have quality, affordable, and sustainable housing, which are agency, autonomy, interdependence, justice, knowledge of self, self-determination, and sustainability. Next, we took a more recent literature review, such as Why Race and Place Matters, which basically discussed that because we are the color that we are, we wouldn't be able to like basically gentrify another community, if you understand. Like, we wouldn't be able to push other people out of their homes. We're being pushed out of our homes because we're in like a lower income area, we're working class. A time of opportunity, which basically states that the health effects associated with housing, we have stress, we have asthma, diabetes, and strokes, all because we're paying a poverty tax, which basically goes to like the hospitals or like when we work or something. And unnatural causes, which is an Alameda County report, basically, in our community, which basically discuss how if we have like grocery stores and liquor stores in our area, it'll help us to be more healthy. Like, we don't really have grocery stores. We have liquor stores on like basically every corner in our neighborhoods. And we also took a look at the film Unnatural Causes, Is Inequality Making Us Sick?, which helped us to understand displacement. Displacement is essentially the same thing as gentrification, which also ties into root shock. Basically, imagine taking a tree from its natural habitat, ripping it out of the soil and trying to like make it grow in another area. It won't happen, and that's exactly what's happening to us. All of our traditions, all of our culture, everything that we know and that we speak of is just being taken away from us. And I'll pass it over to Nick, who will discuss our methodology.
How y'all doing this lovely afternoon in Hawaii? Enjoying yourselves? So, My name is Nicholas Ross. I'm a freshman in college, and just like the other group, and I also went to Fremont High School. So just like the other group that went before us, we also use UC Berkeley professor Michael Burraway's extended case method, but we just modified it so then that it focused on housing and fit our research project. So we also use data triangulation to make sure that any claim that we made was supported by three types of evidence, three types of data. First being surveys and interviews. So we went out into the community, surveyed people, we interviewed policymakers, other experts in our community to get their feel and their opinion on what's going on out there. Next, we used our own observations and the observations of other people of what's going on in our community. And then we also supported that with the literature from the group that presented before us and the literature that EOSTC just got finished breaking down to make sure that, to like look at existing theories that was already there and spoke on these things. So our survey was designed to get three types of information. So the first type of information is how helpful is the current assistance programs on housing? How good are they? Like, are they working or what's up with them? Next is who should be held accountable? Who should be held accountable for the housing assistance programs that's being that are currently available in our community? So we had statements in our survey such as this one. Banks should be held accountable when they do not provide affordable loans. And then we had a Likert scale ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree to get the survey taker's opinion. Next, our interviews were designed on the expertise of the interviewee to make sure to basically see what's going on out in our community, like the different projects that's out there to fix the problem, people that are advocating for justice in housing. Now let's take a look at some of the people we interviewed. So here we have Dr. Wade Nobles, who's a professor of Africana Studies, and he's the founder and executive director of the Institute for Black Family, Life, and Culture. And he also, and he's at San Francisco State University, he's a professor there. Next, we have Dr. Russell Jung, who's a professor of Asian American Studies, also at San Francisco State University, and he's co-director of the Oak Park film. Now this film follows a Cambodian family, a black family, and a Mexican family as they struggle to fight their landlord and the living conditions of their apartment. And a quick side note about him, we all participated in the Oakland Marathon, and he was there right alongside of us running with us. So we know he likes to get fit. Now we have Sasha Werblings and Danielle Beavers, who both work at the Green Lining Institute. Now Sasha, she is the senior manager at the Green Lining Institute, and Danielle, she's the Economic Equity Fellow. Now the Green Lining Institute, this is a multi-ethnic advocacy program that works to empower communities of color. And last but not least, we have Ms. Sherry. Now she's a special ed teacher at Skyline High School, which is a high school in Oakland, which is in the hills, not in the flats. She's an activist and organizer. She's a member of Casa Justa, which is this program designed, created to help families that are having housing issues. And she also works with building healthy communities. Excuse me, I think I'm coming down with something. Okay, now let's move on to the other part, our survey data. We asked people, you know, the basic demographics, you know, what's your age? As you can see, most of the people that we surveyed was over 30. Second biggest group was 20 to 30. These are the people getting ready to buy their houses, first-time users. Male to female ratio was basically even. Females leading at 51, males 49. Race and ethnicity, most of the people, Black African American, Latino Chicanas, Asian, these are the people that we see in our communities. And then we have Caucasian and white, which are the people who we interviewed, downtown Oakland, the policymakers, all these people. Now, we asked them, would you like to own a home in your community? 52% of the people would love to own a home in their community. Why not? It's your community. You would want to own a home, right? But then we have this percentage over here, 34, that said that they would not. And we asked them why. It was all like, well, can't afford it, the houses, they're inadequate, they're crappy, and like, there's no way for us to actually get information about it. Like, how do we go about this? And then we asked them, so do you rent or do you own the place where you stay at right now? As you can see, 68% of the people that we interviewed said that they rent their homes. A small percentage, 8.9, said that they actually own their homes. And then we have 22 that says that they're paying mortgage, which will eventually lead to owning their houses. Next question. Are there enough programs to make buying a house affordable in your community? 81% of the people we surveyed said no. Well, if you can't access information, you're not going to be able to own, which leads us to rent homes. Then we asked them, is it easy to access information about the housing assistance programs? 62% of the people said no. Why? Because they feel as though that there is not enough programs out there because there is a lack of communication with the programs that are currently available. They're not communicating to the people that we're here to help you, which leads to people still renting their homes and not owning their homes. Now we're all like, is there enough affordable homes? Like, can you actually go out and buy, get a home that's affordable in your budget? 8 out of the 10 people that we basically surveyed said that no, there is not enough affordable homes in their community. This is because they can't actually have information. They can't access this information so that they could go out and actually buy the homes because there is not enough programs that they feel is out there. This is due to the lack of communication and the lack of actually having enough programs out there for them to get this information, which leads us to renting these homes and not actually owning. So after getting all this information from our surveys, from our own observations, and from our interviews, we have to figure out what is the next step. Like, how do we move forward from this? Now that we know what the problem is, how do we move forward? So my group, we actually participated in the new Homes for All campaign. This was a protest that is asking President Obama and other elected officials in office if they could develop a plan to where it protects and expands affordable quality housing. As you can see, this is us gathered in downtown Oakland, downtown in front of Chase Bank, and this wasn't just happening in downtown Oakland. This was happening in 11 cities nationwide. So this is showing you that this is not just a problem that's going on in Oakland. This is a nationwide problem. And even in our short time being here in Hawaii and Honolulu, we've seen homeless people. So we know that we need to fix it here also. See, when we envision our community, that will be built around our 7 pillars. Those pillars that Ursi talked about, yeah, they're going to come in handy. Autonomy, justice, knowledge of self, interdependence, justice. You know, we want a community that's built around this. So then we'll be able to actually get these houses. We'll have equal access, they will be affordable, and they will be adequate to our living. So as I was doing my research, I found out that having a house was your basic human right. How many of y'all knew that? That it's your human right to have adequate housing. You knew that?
Yeah.
See, in 1991, the United Nations declared that it is your right, your human right to have standard living. To be more specific, this is what it says. In like a short term, you can read it right there, but I'm going to summarize it. It says that the state parties recognize the right of everyone to an adequate standard of living for himself and for his family. This includes food, clothing, and housing to make sure that it is a continuous improvement of the living. See, the right to an adequate housing is derived from the right to an adequate standard of living. It is of central importance for the enjoyment of all economic, all social, and all cultural rights. I don't think y'all heard me. It said it is of central importance for all enjoyment of economic, social, and cultural rights. So it's saying that your house is this important. In order for you to go out and enjoy your cultural rights, your social, and your economics, we must make sure that our housing rights are straight first. That's how important it is. And most people don't know this. And let's look. As you can see, the United States signed this document. They said that having a house is your basic human rights. So why is it that we have homeless people? Why is it that we have abandoned houses? Why is it that we have people living in these inadequate houses? People don't know that having a basic human right, that having a house is their basic human right. Nor do they know that we can actually take this to the court and fight this, because the United States government signed the contract. Signing that declaration is a contract, saying that they was going to do one thing, but then they turned around and do another. We have a solid case, don't we? Like, we could give people some houses real fast. So, how do we actually, spread the knowledge? How do we let people know that, having a house is their basic human right? We go out and advocate. We use our own voice. See, now that we know that having a house is our basic human rights, we have the moral obligation to go out and at least, at the bare minimum, tell one person. Tell one person that having a house is their basic human rights, and watch how you change their life. Watch how we change the world. And it's easy, especially with all this social media that we got. Man, we got Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, YouTube. All we have to do is just take a minute out of our day, update a status, take a picture, and let people know. And watch how we change. See, our voice is part of a bigger project. It's a small step towards this larger project where we actually take down the base, we engage with the base, we engage with our local government, we engage with the federal government. See, once we start engaging with the banks, we must demand that they stop handing out these subprime loans. Because if they continue to hand out these subprime loans, we're not going to have a house-to-home pipeline. Like D-Mac spoke to you about how there's already a school-to-prison pipeline and how we want a school-to-job pipeline. But if they keep handing out these subprime loans, we're not going to have a house-to-home pipeline. Now, you may ask, why do we need a house-to-home pipeline? Well, the important thing about owning your home is that it actually contributes to the community. You contribute wealth to the community, and as we know, if you have wealth, you have power. And obviously we don't have any power because we're steady renting our homes and no one's actually owning them. Now, after that, we go talk to our local officials, our mayors, people that actually represent the people. And we can do this easily through protests like the Homes for All campaign, any revolutionary transformative act to gain their attention. You can see this in Richmond. Now, Richmond, California, it's an urban city just like Oakland, not that far from another. Go through the same thing, poverty, low housing. The mayor actually has enacted the eminent domain law. See, now what this law does is when a bank is about to foreclose a house, the city has the right to actually buy that house at the lowest possible cost. Then they sit down with the family and establish like an affordable payment plan so that family doesn't go homeless and that the house isn't foreclosed. Now, if you heard of the eminent domain, you might have seen the negative reputation that it had, because typically when the city enacts eminent domain, they build such things as like malls, amusement parks, things that's not essentially for the people. But the way in which Richmond is using it, it's getting nationwide news. They getting so much attention because they're actually using it for the people. But this is a step towards the right direction, but this is still treating housing as a business and not for human rights. Because at the end of the day, they're still getting money from the people as they're paying, still paying back these loans, these subprime loans that's been handed to them. Now, after we move from the local government, we gotta go to the federal government. Now, we gotta make sure that they are obeying that contract that they signed. We must make sure that they are obeying our human rights, that they're not violating that. See, in 2013, the Obama administration actually extended the deadline for the Making Homes Affordable program. See, now this program, what it does is it gives people enough time to actually, find other alternatives or find ways to where they're not going to go under foreclosure. But this is it's really not in the right direction. It's getting towards the point, but all it did was extend the deadline. So this is still treating housing as a business and not as human rights. And we don't want that. We want housing for human rights, because once we have housing as a human rights, then our communities will flourish. Then we will have knowledge of self. Then we will be, our communities will be prosperous. We won't be going through the struggles that we're going through. And then we'll be able to enjoy our social rights, our cultural rights, and our economic rights. But first, this all starts with us. We got to go out and talk. We got to let people know. We got to spread the word, because this is bigger than ourselves. We have to go out and advocate. Like they said, DP's favorite word, he's back there, his favorite quote: the more you know, the more you owe. Now you owe people this knowledge, what you just learned from both groups. Like we said, housing is the center of everything. If there's chaos in the house, when you go out for work or anywhere else, your mind is still going to be on your house, because that's what you have to go back to at the end of the day. Now, we want that to be the sanctuary where it's peace, calm, and it's stable. So we must make sure our houses is right first before we go out and focus on any other issue. Molly, would you like to read this quote? This is her favorite quote, by the way. She loves this.
If you're deaf, dumb, and blind to what's happening in the world, you're under no obligation to do anything. But if you do know what's happening, you don't do nothing but sit on your ass. You're nothing but a punk.
I'm not a punk. I don't know if y'all punks. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but I'm not a punk. And now that I know this, I've been going out telling people, and I don't know. I don't want y'all to be punks, so I want y'all to go out there and start spreading the word, telling people that having their house is their basic human rights. Like, that's what I'm gonna leave y'all with. Like, little homework, basically, little homework. Just go out, tell one person. Just tell one person. Now I'd like to say thank you. And if we have time, we can show a video.
Let's show one first.
Show one?
10 minutes, like
Show
7.
y'all.
Okay, show y'all a quick skimming of our video. And also, if you like, at the end, put down your email.